Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid, the Monday after the madness at the Super Bowl. Are you tired today? Did you get enough sleep? How is today not a national holiday, the day after the Super Bowl? Even my 11-year-old son was asking me this at 10:30. Do I have to go to school tomorrow? Any way I could get a permission slip of any kind saying the game went to overtime? I don't know. Maybe start the game early or start the game later. Look, I don't know what to say. But either way, we were treated to, I would think, a very exciting finish. Maybe not the best play from start to finish, but naturally to get an overtime game and to get that kind of dramatics, I don't think you could ask for much more in a Super Bowl in Las Vegas. So, of course, we're going to focus in on that. We've got guest contributors here. As always on the show, Vinnie Iyer is going to talk about all the records that were broken in the Super Bowl from Sporting News. He's coming up in about 10 minutes from now. 20 minutes from now, Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report, the very latest on the handle as far as how many people bet on sports, the way that it went. And then coming up later also, George Kurtz, our buddy's going to be in. We'll talk about that. And naturally, as the Super Bowl and the football season comes to an end, and we probably saw this a lot on social media last night, a lot of people pivoting now to baseball season, which is what we're going to be focusing in on here as we get closer here to pitchers and catchers reporting and everything else. For those of you who know, of course, I cover Major League Baseball, so it should be a fun show for all of you who like baseball here on the show this season. But let's rewind. It's the Monday after the Super Bowl, so naturally, that's what we're talking about here. Patrick Mahomes, what did he do last night? I don't know. Game-winning drive again, and he wins the Super Bowl MVP. By the way, do the odds makers know what they're doing here? Look at that final score. 25-22, okay? That's the final score. This game could have went 8 different ways as far as 49ers or Chiefs winning throughout the game. Like, this was the ultimate coin flip game. And not only was it the coin flip game, look at that total. The total was 47 over on FanDuel, 47.5, and it landed like right on the number because of the overtime. I get it. But to me, it just goes to show some of the smartest people in the world are not me. And Sam may be one of them, our producer, but really, generally speaking, it is the people who make the odds at the sports books. It is incredible. All right, so that's where we're at. Now, speaking of which, who's the favorite to win the next Super Bowl? You may be surprised. It is not the Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco 49ers. They open up as plus 450 right now on FanDuel if you want to get involved in that. The Chiefs are around 7-1, Ravens right behind them. A lot of action, by the way, on overtime. In most places, 11-1. And the sportsbook presidents over at Circa and Caesars are saying that there was a lot of action on people betting the overtime. And naturally, that's going to happen because of the spread being so close. So San Francisco minus 1.5, 2, depending on where you had it. Other news, the Eagles have granted Hassan Reddick permission to seek a trade. He had 11 sacks last season. Also, the Seahawks are hiring Ryan Grubb as their offensive coordinator. He was a former University of Washington offensive coordinator. Of course, Washington making all kinds of moves in the offseason. All right, in college, a lot of our focus, as I mentioned, baseball, not just that, also college basketball. Folks, the NCAA tournament is going to hit us right before we know it. It's a little bit over a month away. Do you believe that? Dartmouth players are saying that they are backing a push to unionize, and this would change the landscape of all of college. 2 players are looking to unionize their basketball team, and other athletes, other Ivy School athletes are also expressing interest in that. Now, in case you missed it with all the Super Bowl hoopla over the weekend, how about this one? Chip Kelly, UCLA head coach, is going to Ohio State to become their offensive coordinator. You do not see this happen all that often, and I would love to be a fly on the wall in that conversation and also a fly on the wall in Chip Kelly's bank account to see exactly what they are paying him, because that is a pretty significant change. Head coach to offensive coordinator at a different school. Purdue's Zach Edey hits his first career three-pointer in the win over Indiana. Remember, Purdue, come NCAA tournament time, they're going to be I would guess, a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed at worst if things go south. And also, how about this? Caitlin Clark was held scoreless in Iowa's loss on Sunday. 3rd loss of the year for number 2 Iowa. 8 points away from the all-time scoring leader in the NCAA. All right, the other thing that we're coming up on is the NBA All-Star Game and the All-Star break. Again, they take more of an extended break this time around, so that is coming up fast and furious. Terry Rozier, Josh Richardson, the Miami Heat scheduled for MRIs. Jimmy Butler is away from the team. Both players were injured in their loss to the Celtics. The Heat is playing really short at the moment and not playing their best basketball since they acquired Rozier. Is going to be a work in progress. Malcolm Brogdon is going to miss 2 weeks with an elbow injury. Hasn't played in about 10 days. Going to miss 2 more weeks. Kyle Lowry, who was traded from Miami to the Hornets, accepted a buyout and is going to play now with the Philadelphia 76ers. And the deal with Lowry is about $2.8 million for the rest of the season. And also Spencer Dinwiddie, who cleared waivers after Toronto cut him, he ended up signing with the Los Angeles Lakers for their playoff push out west. Okay, let's get to the latest on the ice. Morgan Riley, you may have seen this highlight over and over again on social media from the Ottawa Senators. Cross-check on Saturday, going to have an in-person hearing tomorrow. This was showboating after an empty net goal, suspension probably coming here. Nick Taylor wins the Waste Management Phoenix Open in a playoff, 35-year-old Canadian who ends up winning another long shot on the PGA Tour. Every single winner on the tour thus far in January and February has hit on some insane odds in the PGA Tour. So it's been kind of crazy. Also, a lot of highlights coming out of there. A lot of the golfers are getting sick and tired of these people yelling at them at the Waste Management Open. It's like what it's all about. But I think the golfers at some point are going to have enough there. Over in the Caribbean Series here in South Florida, Venezuela at Lone Depot Park took down the Dominican Republic, a 3-0 final there. And by the way, because of the early start to the season for the Los Angeles Dodgers, they are already in Camelback Ranch. Dodgers and Padres, pitchers and catchers have reported to Arizona. Aren't those some sweet words? The rest of the teams in Major League Baseball will report to Florida and Arizona a little bit later in the week. Also, a minor baseball trade happened yesterday, in case you missed this, as former top prospect Nick Gordon of the Minnesota Twins, brother of D. Gordon, who you may remember was traded to the Miami Marlins for left-handed pitcher Steven Okert. So a baseball trade there as well. The other baseball stories we'll be following for you this week and next week is the expectation is that you're going to see all of the remaining free agents in baseball signed over the next couple of weeks. There's still a lot of them that are out there. Naturally, the spring training games begin on the 23rd or 24th of February, so this has got to get done soon. All right, those of you who are following us on social media, that's cool. Here's an easy way to do this, by the way, with your phone. Take it out and scan this QR code. It's the SportsGrid app. Give you all the news, notes, highlights. What a fantastic job our entire crew did in Las Vegas throughout the week. All highlights are all over YouTube and posted everywhere. Some fantastic interviews. All of the crew from morning to night. It was banner to banner coverage, I thought, in Las Vegas. I thought the best job that we've done as a SportsGrid group out there. So congratulations to everybody involved in that. A job well done. All right, we'll take a quick time out here on the show. We got Vinnie Iyer coming up next. Kickers breaking records in the Super Bowl last night, all over the place. Overtime game in the Super Bowl. We'll review exactly what happened in last night's game, some of the pivotal moments. Could have things changed? It feels like we got the outcome that most thought would happen, but the direction as to how this went throughout the game wasn't exactly what we thought. We'll touch on that next. Vinnie Iyer from Sporting News joins us here on NewsWire the day after the Super Bowl. I'll be right back.
Thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you should, that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proved over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Chargers have the 5th pick in the National Football League draft. There's a lot of different, roads that they could take with this pick. And for the record as well, there's a few sports books out there already that already have next year's Super Bowl numbers up. The Chargers are like 30-1. So there's a lot of work to do.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
My goodness, if the Bucks come out strong and certainly make a point to say, look, even though we have been playing our best basketball, we're here to beat you down. And that's a big-time win for the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I'll say 12 or more years of suffering. The last, take a look. Go look at it yourself. After Bear Bryant, all they did was lose.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The early
race
line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
NewsWire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell,
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live. Prime time.
Yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the fourth inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was good
Late
betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid
We did.
information. Did like the 2.5. Jumped on.
There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Well, the NFL season is officially over, and now the off-season begins. So before we get to that, let's recap what we saw last night in the National Football League. All kinds of records being broken, and predominantly because, again, you got your money's worth. You almost got 2 games in one last night. It felt like it, at least. Vinnie Iyer joins us from Sporting News. And, Vinnie, interesting game, I think, from start to finish. A sloppy game, sloppier than I think most would have expected for the majority of the game. That led us to the possibility of getting to an overtime where so many records were broken, but fumble on one side, fumble on the other side, interception on one side, missed extra point on the other. I mean, was this a Super Bowl that I watched last night? I know they played at a high level at the end of the game, but my gosh, it took a while to get there.
Yeah, this reminded me a lot of the Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl from Super Bowl 51, where it started slow, it looked ugly, then it developed into an overtime game that we fondly remember. It started a lot like the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl from a few years ago that was pretty bad at 13-3. So I'm glad it evolved into something like this. It was still rather ugly in the end. The funny thing is Patrick Mahomes has won 3 Super Bowls and 3 Super Bowl MVPs. It's not been all that pretty, right? It's not been pristine the way we're used to Joe Montana going out there, but he gets it done in the end. It's almost like he invites digging a 10-point Super Bowl hole. Like no one else would want this. The Chiefs love seemingly to play in the playoffs from behind, and maybe it just motivates them more. I don't know. But Patrick Mahomes, look, and maybe that's why the 49ers should have probably deferred in overtime, because Patrick Mahomes getting the ball last is never a good idea.
No, and he ended up, winning it for him in the end. I thought, as I said earlier in the show, Vinny, like of all the Super Bowls that I've watched, look, that New England-Seattle one was questionable at the end of the game too, but whoever you picked in the Super Bowl, I felt in the end, nobody got the pick right. It was just a matter of like who had the ball last. I mean, it could have went either way so many different times. Remember, an extra point is missed. We're not even talking about that today. Like that could have decided the game too. It was such a wild finish to this with a short spread and the total landing almost on the number 2. Sort of incredible there. Kicking was a big part of this game, Vinny, bigger than I think most people thought it would be. Harrison Butker ended up kicking a 57-yard field goal in this game, longest field goal made. Stunning to see even Jake Moody in the confidence that Kyle Shanahan had in him. I mean, Vinny, I'm guessing, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe they saw warm-ups with these guys and said, wait a second, these guys are going to boom it tonight. That's the only thing that I could come up with here because, Vinny, most teams in the regular season don't even opt to kick field goals like that. They're like, nah, no way, we're going for it. These guys were like, yeah, sure, let's try 55, 57. Unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty good field for field goals. I mean, Daniel Carlson has been very clutch for the Raiders on this field, so he's been a big-time kicker. And look, Harrison Butker, I think we forget about him. He's the key member of this Chiefs team as well. We're right there with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones representing the other parts of the team, right? So this guy's been money all the time. He's got a big leg. And the difference we know in the game was Jake Moody. Look, 49ers drafted him pretty early because he has a big leg, right? This is why he could make these longer field goals, he's just inconsistent on the shorter kicks. And we saw that. He missed the extra point attempt that put everything out of whack in this game and maybe could have spared this game going to overtime. So, look, Moody is still a guy that they liked because, again, Robbie Gould just didn't have that range there. But Butker's everything. I mean, we talk about Justin Tucker being the best modern kicker and all that. I don't think Butker gets enough credit here. He's just clutch after clutch, and he's just not the most exciting guy, but he just goes out there like an assassin and delivers whenever the Chiefs need him. And again, I think that's an underrated part. The special teams, we know how good the offense and defense are, but the special teams of the Chiefs, just a bigger part of their 3 championships.
Yeah, and most field goals made by 2 teams involved in this with 7. And so anybody who bet the kicker props, they went way over that. I don't know that anybody was involved in the punter props. 50.8, that's a record. Fewest kickoff returns by both teams. Fewest kickoff yards by both teams as well. And you know what, Vinny? I totally forgot about this. Like, the sloppiness continued. I mean, the Chiefs won that game because that ball hit the guy's leg on the San Francisco 49ers. Like, isn't it something how – look, I don't want to take anything away from the Chiefs. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying, like, the opportunistic way that the Chiefs have been able to win, and against the Ravens too. I mean, Zay Flowers running into the end zone, they poke that ball out. Who knows how that game ends up winning? I guess you just have to say the Chiefs are, a championship team, a dynasty team, but they also make the most of these opportunities that are given to them because a missed extra point. I mean, think of the flubs that San Francisco had in this game to put the Chiefs back in.
Yeah, they say luck is the residue of design. This is a quote from a long time ago, but when you look at that, the Chiefs are always well designed, right? They're going to put themselves in the best position to succeed. I mean, just the comments we've seen after the game about Chris Jones and Andy Reid preparing for what was going to happen in an overtime scenario in a Super Bowl. Well, the 49ers were, I don't know what we're doing. We're not sure exactly how this overtime works. Well, you have the Chiefs well prepared for all the scenarios in this game. And coming down to the same thing, right? They run the same exact play for a touchdown in a key game that they did against the Eagles last year. It's on film right there with a different wide receiver. And they just say, okay, we're going to execute it because we're better at this. And you guys are going to be fooled. And just all the little things they did, putting guys in motion, stop starting. I mean, Andy Reid, look, this guy started out as a very good offensive coach. Now I think he's at the level where he's just a genius in terms of game management, tactician style moves here because, look, this was an issue before, right? When he couldn't challenge on time, he had some game management issues, but I think he's evolved to the point that he's unstoppable all around as the best coach in the NFL by far without Bill Belichick.
Yeah, no, it feels that way, and you're right. I mean, those issues presented themselves in the Super Bowl, even when Philadelphia got there. It's talked about a lot with McNabb and Terrell Owens, losing that Super Bowl as well. But Reid is headed to the Hall of Fame when he's done. He, this morning there's reports, Vinny, that he is not done, and that he is coming back for another season. And I guess it's fair to assume that we could be sitting here a year from now talking about the Chiefs again. I mean, honestly, their roster is probably not nearly as good as the San Francisco 49ers one, and yet they ended up winning. I would imagine the Chiefs get a couple receivers or even just one, and that immediately puts them in a much better spot than they were all year long. Isn't it sort of incredible to think that Mahomes, outside of Rice and Kelsey, had no one to throw to all season and still won a Super Bowl? It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, this is why Andy Reid doesn't want to walk away. I mean, he's the masterpiece guy, and he's got the brush, the ultimate brush here to keep painting this. And why wouldn't you want to keep coaching if Patrick Mahomes is going to keep winning you championships? And how about his youthfulness, fall on the ground with Chris Jones and celebrating after the game, brushing off being pushed by Travis Kelsey? This guy might be the oldest coach now in the league, but acting like he's very young and has got many more years to rack up championships. So we know Tom Brady better watch out. Maybe Bill Belichick needs to start watching out as well at this rate.
Yeah, if he keeps winning. On the flip side, 49ers, I really don't have a ton of negative to say here, Vinny. Like, I see a lot of people like saying that they lost and all that stuff, but it's like, I don't know what they were supposed to do. I thought they played a pretty well, executed game. A couple mistakes ended up costing them. I could easily see them right back here next year, right?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just don't play the Chiefs. I mean, there's only 2 quarterbacks in the playoffs that have beaten him right now. It's Joe Burrow and Tom Brady. Someone else has got to figure it out at some point. So maybe that's the break you get. Maybe Joe Burrow does the dirty work again and takes him out. I don't know. Somebody in the AFC has got to challenge Patrick Mahomes a little bit better if the NFC teams are going to get a shot here.
Yeah, it doesn't appear that's happening anytime soon. All right, Vinny. Well, hey, great season. Great having you on all season. I'm sure we'll continue to talk about the upcoming draft and everything else. Thank you again for your contributions all season long here on NewsWire. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Craig.
All right, Vinnie Iyer. Follow him on social media and also over at sportingnews.com. Coming up next, Mike Mazzeo joins us. We'll talk a little bit about the ramifications financially from the Super Bowl last night. Also get into the latest on sports betting in California. More NewsWire is next.
Kind of thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction, or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proved over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Chargers have the 5th pick in the National Football League draft. There's a lot of different like roads that they could take with this pick. And for the record as well, there's a few sports books out there already that already have next year's Super Bowl numbers up. The Chargers are like 30-1. So there's a lot of work to do.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
My goodness, if the Bucks come out strong and certainly make a point to say, look, even though we have been playing our best basketball, we're here to beat you down. And that's a big-time win for the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I'll say 12 or more years of suffering. The last, take a look. Go look at it yourself. After Bear Bryant, all they did was lose.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
Well, look at the Heisman Trophy.
The Early Line.
And what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
NewsWire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
Coast to Coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time
I
decisions.
have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was good
Late
betting.
Night.
We waited for a 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Did like a 2.5. Jumped on.
There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. A bit of breaking news here. UCLA Bruins' new head football coach is Deshaun Foster, former running back at UCLA. Of course, Carolina Panthers also a coach as well. Maybe a surprise for some people. No search at all, it sounds like, for UCLA within a week, just bumping Deshaun Foster up. So naturally, we will see how that works out for the Bruins. Let's see what happened at the Super Bowl last night as far as the financial ramifications, sports betting interest. Mike Mazzeo, as always, joins us here on Mondays on Legal Sports Report. And, Mike, we're going to break records, right? I mean, we're going to have somebody from Legal Sports Report on, I'm sure, tomorrow or the next day. And here it was the most bet Super Bowl of all time. Do you think that's like the headliner from this Super Bowl? Was there anything that caught your eye in particular?
Yeah, Craig, great game. You asked me who would win. I said the Chiefs. Everything worked out exactly as I predicted. Game went exactly according to plan. No, it was an unbelievable game. I think I guess the big story coming out right early on. We don't know what the final numbers are, but the books got hit. The Chiefs won the game. There were a lot of player props that didn't go their way. Went the public's way, the under, just a lot of different bets that the public ended up on top. So that's great news for sports bettors. I'm sure the books will recover financially. I don't think they're done. I think they'll be able to come back and do this thing again next year. How many, we'll see with the consolidation and some of the, the big winners, DraftKings, FanDuel, can anyone catch them? But just an incredible game. Geolocation checks up 22% according to GeoComply. So, those phones are pinging. Maybe people aren't betting exactly. It's not a one-to-one with the pings and the bets. But, I'm sure, like you said, we predicted at Legal Sports Report, Eric Ramsey, that it would be $1.3 billion in handle. Wouldn't be surprised to see that number hit. And I'm sure a lot of states did really well. And, we'll see how it goes. But things are only growing. And then you have Dave Portnoy coming up as in Barstool partnering with DraftKings right after. And the Jets changing uniforms, right? The guy who thought he was going to catch the game-winning touchdown pass from Aaron Rodgers catches it from Patrick Mahomes. Incredible, only for the Jets, that would happen. It'll be the offseason. We're already seeing some future props on who's going to win next year. The Chiefs will be the consensus favorite, obviously, after winning 2. And like you said, their team maybe wasn't as good talent-wise, but the fact they could get even better and be a free agent, draw or a trade draw for superstar players, like you said, a wideout, incredible. And the NFL, no matter what people say about it, with the gambling controversy, this controversy, that controversy, continues to put out, an incredible product. And everybody was watching last night, and it lived up to the hype and more.
Yeah, it did. And I like your comment about I don't know how the books are going to recover from this. It's going to be very difficult for them. I mean, NBA, they'll recover in one day, Mike. They got the NBA going tonight. You try and tell me who's going to win any of those games in the NBA. Come 6 o'clock Eastern, who's playing, who's in, who's out, and games are upside down half the time. I think they'll end up being okay. I would say the other thing, I've talked about this now twice on the show, Mike, anybody on social media who is like, saying, oh, I told you the Chiefs, I told you, pal. I'm like, yeah, I'm, instant unfollow right there. I mean, did you not watch this game from start to finish? Who was confident in any side for about 3 hours in that game last night? So in the end, I get it. And, certainly we'll get those numbers later in the week, I'm sure. All right, let's get to California here. Like many other states, Mike, what we're finding is a lot of these states just don't want these pick'em games going on, these daily fantasy pick'em games. I think in the case of California, maybe a little bit different here, because usually the road that this has gone is that sports betting gets legalized in a state, they're paying their taxes, and then all of a sudden the state looks at these DFS pick'em operators like, wait a second, they're not paying their taxes, so let's call them illegal and get rid of them. Why is California doing this? Because they don't have legal sports betting yet.
Yeah, I think, Craig, this is just the tribes, again, flexing their power, right? They didn't want FanDuel and DraftKings to run sports betting. Proposition 27 got beaten. They didn't want these venture capitalists coming in and running sports betting operations in the state via their, proposed sports betting propositions, and they didn't even make the ballot. Those guys, they called it quits. So the tribes really run the show in California. They don't want these pick'em games. We've seen it in multiple jurisdictions, right? Actually, really even more important than the tribes last week is this morning, Prize Picks said in New York, after the NFL, after their biggest moneymaker drops, and ends for the season, we're finally ceasing operations on Pick'em, New York. So that is kind of the big story this morning. And I think you could see multiple jurisdictions. They get those operators, Prize Picks and Underdog, that were operating potentially legally in those states. That's what the state regulators determined on Pick'em was it's illegal in our state. Right. Please cease and desist. They are potentially, they got more than just New York. They could stop in all those states now that NFL season's over. It wouldn't be surprising to see them come out with multiple letters today. They sent their New York customers, Prize Picks did, a letter that said, by Wednesday at, I think, 11:59, right before midnight, all these Prize Picks, this paid pick'em games are going to be gone. We'll have some free-to-play where you can win cash prizes going forward. So we'll see on that front. And then maybe Florida, we'll see what happens there. Another big state, Craig, like you said, with California. Florida does have legal sports betting through Hard Rock Bet. We'll see. They were one of the states that said, you can't do this here. So we'll see if those operators, Prize Picks and Underdog, which were making waves, getting customers, kind of probably concerning DraftKings and FanDuel, but they're saying, well, you're not playing by the same rules. You're not paying the same taxes maybe as we are. And so we'll see, probably, is Pick'em going to survive in the U.S.? Seems like they're going to have to find another way for it to, or they're going to have to pay the same taxes and go under the same regulations as the big operators, or for them to continue. But, again, in in California, the tribes, they've said they put out a big opinion to the state attorney general, has been investigating this issue and said, we don't want this either. And the tribes have a huge say with their 52 members in Sinaga, including, Pachanga, Morongo, San Manuel, the big gaming tribes that have shut down any sort of sports betting, legislation or voter propositions that would get on the ballot that the voters would able to vote on. So yeah, this is an issue that's not going away, Craig. Sam McQuillan is a terrific beat writer for us on this issue. He knows way more about this than I do. So he will be on this. I'm sure he'll be talking about this with multiple legal sports reporters this week, because it is a huge story, and we'll continue to get updates as the day progresses.
It is. And look, I think we just got to call it how it is at this point. These DFS pick'em operators maybe didn't anticipate sports betting being legal and being taxed as high as they were. It will be very hard, Mike, I see, to survive off the revenue that they are making off those games, to be able to pay those taxes. So without a doubt, I agree with you in that sentiment. Okay, so hey, we're back talking about Florida again. I know it's been a while. This Wes Flagler kind of went off into the shadows as far as the public eye is concerned, because Hard Rock bet's been up and people are betting in Florida on sports through the Seminole Tribe. But Wes Flagler is battling on here. They're trying to get this stopped somehow. They want everybody to be able to bet on sports, not just the tribe. I don't know. Is this a losing battle, Mike? At this point, I don't see the tribe shutting down the sports betting unless they're forced to. The Supreme Court, I guess, is now in play here.
Right, Craig. So yeah, they had until I think it was Wednesday or Thursday to file a writ petition with the U.S. Supreme Court. They did so. They are challenging, like you said, the Seminoles with Hard Rock Bet have a monopoly through the 2021 Gaming Compact agreed to with Governor Ron DeSantis to have exclusivity to offer sports betting in the state. Wes Flagler and some of the other pari-mutuals have challenged that. They have finally submitted to the Supreme Court. I think they were waiting for the state case, the state Florida sports betting case to be finalized that, said expanded gambling violates the state constitution. That did not happen, but they did file here. So we've got a state case, got a Supreme Court case. It's going to take the Supreme Court a while to even decide if they want to hear the case. I mean, it could be a year or two, right, before we finally get anything on this, assuming the Supreme Court even wants to take this case. A couple legal experts I talked to said they don't think that's even going to be the case. I think they take like 2% of all writ petitions. They hear like 70 to 80 cases a year. We'll see whether this is one of them. This is the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act is kind of under fire here. Wes Flagler gave a lot of opinion as to why, it's not legal, right? What Hard Rock's doing here. And, I'm sure there's a lot of players that are going to be watching, right? FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars, all the big sports betting operators are going to want to say they want to get into Florida, obviously, given the population size, right? Just like California and Texas. But we'll see on this front. It's going to be a while. I'm no John Holden, so I don't want to give all the legal opinion as to why this shouldn't happen. But, a lot here, the Equal Protection, Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, a lot of arguments going on. You can read about them in Legal Sports Report with a lot of smarter people than me laying out the arguments. And so we'll see what happens here. But again, an issue that's not going away, and now it's in the court's hands, and we'll see on the state case and the Supreme Court case. We don't have any dates as to when this stuff's going to be done, but it's definitely going to take a while.
Sure. Yeah. Smarter people than me? I don't know, Mike. You picked the Chiefs, right? You get to get the smart guy award for the day. All right. Over $200 million in the state of New York in sports betting, half of that going to the state. All thumbs up, I guess, across the board here, right? Good for the sports betting operators, good for the state with the tax revenue, and another record being broken.
Yeah, Craig, January for New York, again, with the NFL playoffs, it's always king. And New York didn't hit $2 billion. I think it was 2 or 3 consecutive months they'd hit it. I think they just came in under at like $1.96 billion. But yeah, record for going to the operators, over $100 million, and then over $100 million in tax revenue for the first time in any state, any month in, since PASPA was repealed in 2018. So yeah, New York just continues to be the standard bearer for the industry. People are betting a ton on NFL. We've still got March Madness coming up. This is really the prime time for the U.S. sports calendar with the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, and then, college basketball, NBA, NHL in full swing, and, spring training, right, coming up, this week, right? Pitchers and catchers, I think, will start to report, if not this week, next week. So, yeah, I mean, an incredible time. New York continues to be the standard bearer. We'll see what happens with Texas, Florida, whether that stays legal and in California, whenever that goes. But New York is the #1 market and continues to show with these huge numbers. And sure, that's not going to change as the calendar flips to NCAA, the conference tournaments, and then the big NCAA tournament should be incredible.
Yeah, looking forward to that coming up next month. A lot of coverage here on SportsGrid, pivoting over from football to the NBA, NHL, and believe it or not, we'll be here in the spring and the summer soon. Mike, great to see you. Thanks for coming into the studio today. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch up next week here on NewsWire. Thanks again.
Thanks, Craig.
All right, Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report. We'll take a quick time out here on the show. Coming up next, what did the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs have to say after the game? Did Travis Kelce mean to bump Andy Reid? We'll find out next.
Thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction, or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proved over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Chargers have the 5th pick in the National Football League draft. There's a lot of different like roads that they could take with this pick. And for the record as well, there's a few sports books out there already that already have next year's Super Bowl numbers up. The Chargers are like 30-1. So there's a lot of work to do.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
My goodness, if the Bucks come out strong and certainly make a point to say, look, even though we have been playing our best basketball, we're here to beat you down. And that's a big-time win for the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I'll say 12 or more years of suffering. The last, take a look. Go look at it yourself. After Bear Bryant, all they did was lose.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The Early Line,
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
NewsWire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell
backup quarterbacks.
Coast to Coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time decisions.
I have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live,
Just
prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
the bottom of the 4th inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
Late
better.
Night.
We waited for the 1.5. We got paid.
We did.
Did like the 2.5. Jumped on.
There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire on SportsGrid. Super Bowl has come and gone. Almost time for baseball season. George Kurtz, of course, of SportsGrid, SportsGrid Radio, SportsGrid TV, is on the show now to go over some of the things that were said after the game last night. George, did you find the game enjoyable? Did you enjoy yourself last night? I know you're a tough sell, George. Did you enjoy it?
Well, the first half was rough. All right. I mean, the first half, it seemed like you were getting 2 minutes of football, 5 minutes of commercials. 2 minutes of football, 5 minutes of commercials, since we had no offense in the first half, right? Kansas City was just going 3 and out over and over again. And I'm not really a commercial guy, but I thought the commercials were terrible anyway. So the first half was rough here, but the second half I thought was, wow. I mean, entertaining, exciting, right? It got immensely better in the second half. Where I'm not a fan of the Chiefs or the 49ers, but I was on the edge of my seat wondering what was going to happen here.
Okay, so before we get to that, I thought one commercial was better than all the rest. I had a very much favorite commercial of all. Did you or no?
I stopped paying attention after the. I just got so.
Oh, come on,
so
George.
lost after. So it was in the second half. No, I don't remember any second half commercials. Just the first half ones, which were just deplorable.
Sam, did you watch the commercials? I got to talk to my producer here. Sam, did you watch the? Oh my God! Can anybody tell me? There was a commercial. I'll just give it away. There was a Dunkin' Donuts commercial with Ben Affleck, J-Lo, Tom Brady, Matt Damon. Oh, come on, that was good. If you didn't like that commercial, come on, you're not.
It was better than the others. I don't know if it was good. I mean, I thought I thought Affleck was kind of idiotic. Brady, but Damon and Jennifer Lopez, I thought were funny.
It was very funny.
It was better than the others.
Oh, I thought it was funny. I don't even remember any of the other ones. I thought that one was really funny. Okay, so, look, if the Chiefs lost last night, oh my gosh, would we be talking about this Travis Kelce bump of head coach Andy Reid, right? Like, that would be the entire story. That's why they lost the game. Can Kelce coexist with Andy Reid after that? Oh, you know that this was coming. Juwan Jennings would have been the MVP. How about that? Juwan Jennings lost his MVP on the last play of the game. Anyway, after the game, here's what Travis Kelce said on the sideline about this thing with Andy Reid. He said, I was just telling him how much I loved him. Yeah, right. Like, I'm sure that was the case. Let's go to the next quote, too. Andy Reid said, he caught me off balance. I wasn't watching. It was a cheap shot, but it's all right. He did good. He was really coming over to tell me, put me in, I'll score. That's really what it was. I love that man. I mean, it's not the first time. So listen, I appreciate it. So, George, that's like the world we live in the NFL. Like, all the memes are out today with Kelce, yelling at Andy Reid. And it's just amazing to think, like the edges and the margins in sports and in life and in shows like this and in drama. Like, if Patrick Mahomes throws that ball to Hardman in the back of the end zone and he doesn't catch it, it pops up and is caught by a 49er. Our show today is all about how Travis Kelce blew the Super Bowl, bumping into it. I am telling you, that's what we would be doing today.
I found it interesting that Romo and Nance on the broadcast almost poo-pooed it, right? They didn't really talk about it all that much. Because you don't see that. You see players yelling at position coaches, coordinators, each other on the sideline all the time, but not the head coach, and certainly not bump the head coach. All right, that's really not cool here. There's nothing to think the head coach is 70 years old. All right, you might want to ease up there, Travis, okay? You can't do that stuff. And Andy Reid was still focusing on the game, which is probably why you put him on balance a little bit. I don't have an issue with Kelce being upset about not being in the game at the time, but you don't do that to the head coach. You just don't. I think it was A.J. Brown who put on X, whatever we're calling it nowadays. If I did that, I'd be kicked off the planet, which I found kind of hilarious. Listen, do I think Reid was happy? No, but it's Kelce. The only really receiving threat on Kansas City, nothing was going to happen to him in that game. But you're right. It would be a much bigger deal today if the Chiefs had lost that game.
Would. Look, Patrick Mahomes, until the last drive, did not have his best game by a long shot. He did really well with his legs, saving the game in a few spots. But he talked about winning back-to-back champions. Here's the quote from him. It's a culture, man. I got brought into this culture. Alex Smith, remember him? Nobody remembers him. Was leading this team. They had the pieces in place, coached a great team. Ultimate leader, got brought in, tried to exemplify that, keep pushing them to be better, and it truly is special to say that we are back-to-back champs. And George, in the end, having Mahomes get the ball in a win-or-die situation is not optimal. That's inevitably what happened. Do you think that the 49ers made a mistake there? I mean, we're playing literally Monday morning at 11:45 a.m. quarterback here. It's like what they say Monday morning quarterback, here we are, man. Like, we're there. The West Coast even earlier. Did they make the wrong choice? Should they have gone the other way with it? That's being talked about today, too.
That's the major storyline today, right? It was a major storyline right after the game. I don't think this is Monday morning quarterbacking, by the way. Was there anybody who thought Shanahan made the right decision when they decided to receive the kickoff. No. I'm just guessing it. Does Shanahan know the rules changed? Where you scored a touchdown at the bat, Kansas City was still going to get the ball? I don't know if he knew the rule. In that time, he realized the rules have changed. First thing I thought of. Why? You had to answer me this. In a game which is pretty defensively minded, right? Why would you want the ball first there? Why? There's no strategic advantage to it. You score a touchdown, Kansas City still gets the ball. You score a field goal, they still get the ball with a touchdown chance to beat you. You don't score, they get any chance to beat you. The only thing I could think of is that he was worried that his defense was out there for so long on the tying field goal drive that he didn't want his defense out there again. It's the only thing I can think of. But once again, even if they are out there and the Chiefs score a touchdown, you still have a chance to get a touchdown to match. So I thought it was a horrific call then. I mean, like I said, I can't think of the strategic advantage to why you want the ball first other than giving your defense some rest.
Yeah, as the clock was winding down in overtime, I even for a second was like, wait, what is the rule here? I mean, first time I think I've ever watched a game not completely sure as to what was going to happen. Now, Kyle Shanahan, man, this poor guy goes against the Chiefs, loses again. Here's his postgame. He says, I mean, we're all hurt and everybody knows how it feels, and I don't have a lot. We're all hurt. Don't have a lot of words, obviously, or hurting. Our team's hurting. That's how it goes. I'm real proud of our guys. No regrets. If I'm going to lose with this group of guys, I'll do it with those guys anytime, and we'll get over this and come back next year ready to go. So what I would say, I can give you my emotions from this, George, in just a casual observer of the game who knew that he was going to be doing a show on this the next day. As soon as the game ended, I wasn't mad at all. Like, I was like, all right, the game ended. I just was like satisfied, and I shut the TV off. I didn't watch postgame. I didn't watch press conference. Normally, I watch all this stuff to see what they say, but it was like sort of an unpredictable game with a predictable outcome. I understand that Shanahan's going to take a lot of heat, can't beat the Chiefs. I get it. But for me, I kind of throw my hands up, and it's like you're playing against one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He has the ball at the end of the game. You could try to employ all the strategy you want, challenge things, choose different things. If you're going to the Super Bowl and the best player on your team fumbles in the first half, and you're on a punt, you're going to fumble and give the ball back to the Chiefs. If you're going to miss an extra point, George, you're probably going to lose against one of the best players of all time. And to me, that's just the nature of humans in sports. You make mistakes. The best players capitalize on that, and that's how they won.
One thing that's not being talked about all that much is something you just said, the extra point that was missed. I mean, was there anybody who wasn't thinking when Moody missed that, oh, that's going to come back to haunt him? It always seems to come back, right? And sure enough, it did. Of course, then again, maybe the Chiefs would have run at least another play at the end of the game there trying to get a touchdown there. But, it came back to haunt them there. Yes, Shanahan, a lot of truth. He can't win the big one, right? He lost to the Chiefs twice now. When he was offensive coordinator with the Falcons, they blew a 28-3 lead to the Patriots. So, yeah, there might be some truth to that. That being said, he's good enough to get there. And I got to tell you, man, right now, I don't know if anybody in the NFC is challenging San Fran next year. I don't think Philadelphia and Dallas are going to be there. I think they'll be in the playoffs, but I don't know if they'll be challenging them. Detroit could get better. I guess Green Bay could get better, maybe. Nobody in the South. So San Fran still your odds-on favorites to be there again next year. This team should be theoretically better, right? Purdy in his second year starting quarterback. They do have some contracts to worry about, but I think the reason why they lost yesterday was, listen, I didn't like the overtime call. I didn't. But in the first half, you should have been up by more than one score, right? I mean, you can make it out. They should have been up by 17, 20 points in the first half. And they sort of let them slip away here. What did Dennis Green say? We knew who they were. We let them get away, that sort of thing. And you sort of kept KC in the game there. Not that I think it's anything Shanahan did, but I think that's where the game really may have been lost here when you didn't get up by 10, 13, 14, 17 points in the first half.
Yeah, I guess the counterpoint to that, George, what I would take, and look, you can agree or disagree with me, but again, we're talking about the smallest margins of things that happen in sports. A ball that goes 6 inches from a foot on a punt off the 49ers' leg, if that does not hit, George, the 49ers win the game. That's the margin. That is the margin of that game. An extra point that is blocked, now that's skill, I get it, inches of a tip of a finger. If that doesn't happen, I believe the 49ers win the game. Do you agree or disagree with that? I think either of those two things go the other way, the 49ers are Super Bowl champions.
Certainly the punt. right? I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any doubt if that turned the game around. That seemed to put Kansas City back in it. The extra point, probably. But like I said, then Andy Reid would have had at least one more play at the end of that fourth quarter to go for the touchdown, right?
That's fair.
Rather than just kick the field goal. And he might have had two. But that's another interesting thing, by the way, because that'll come back as well. If Kansas City would have lost that game, Reid would be criticized for not. You had 6 seconds. The play before took 3 seconds. I know you're worried about the center whose snaps were all over the place, granted, but I would have trusted Mahomes to first read, throw the ball. If it's there, great. If not, throw it away. We kick the field goal anyway. So, I said, there's always interesting calls, and it's our job. We're going to dissect every little thing here. It's what we do, right? But yeah, there are always calls here. Johnny has been criticized in the past too for playing maybe a little too conservatively. Even games he's won, Green Bay at the end of the first half, he got 3 timeouts just at the ball at his own 30. He just ate the clock here. So, like I said, the only call I can really criticize is the overtime one. I don't understand why you would want that ball.
Yeah. All right. So for us, for you and I, who are a little bit older, we can kind of go back in history at least 30, 40 years and talk about dynasties and make comparisons. You're not seeing a lot of that happening because there's just so many people of the younger generation. It's hard to go back and say, are the Chiefs as good as the Steelers dynasty? Are the Chiefs as good as the 49ers dynasty, Dallas Cowboys dynasty? Are they up there, George, with them right now, with like those teams that I mentioned, the Cowboys with Jimmy and even Switzer and Chuck Noll and Bradshaw and Franco Harris with Pittsburgh and the 49ers with Montana, and then Young. I mean, the Giants to a degree winning Super Bowls, Washington to a degree, winning a few Super Bowls. Do you put them above? Are they at there? Where do you stand on that?
Oh, I think they're at least at there, right? They've won 3 and 4, lost another one, right? So they're at least at there. I sort of compare this team to the Patriots, especially this team, where because you look at it, Mahomes, great, right? Brady, great. Didn't have great receivers for the most part. Brady had Morse for a little bit, but generally didn't have great receivers, but did have the great tight end, Gronk, right? Kelsey, I think it's very simple. The defense really won the game. This was sort of all season as well here. So I definitely compare them to the late Patriots teams here. But yeah, I think they're a dynasty. I do. In today's world, you win 3 in a short period of time, 4 years, 5 years, you're a dynasty. They're one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have them with New England yet, but I think they are with some of the other teams that I mentioned. All right, George, great analysis as always. Have a great rest of your week. Looking forward to talking baseball with you soon. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Spring training right around the corner.
Here it is. We'll take a break, come back, and wrap it up with my thoughts on where the 49ers are at.
Thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proof over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The Chargers have the 5th pick in the National Football League draft. There's a lot of different like roads that they could take with this pick. And for the record as well, there's a few sports books out there already that already have next year's Super Bowl numbers up. The Chargers are like 30-1. So there's a lot of work to do.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
My goodness, if the Bucks come out strong and certainly make a point to say, look, even though we have been playing our best basketball, we're here to beat you down. And that's a big-time win for the Milwaukee Bucks.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I'll say 12 or more years of suffering. The last, take a look. Go look at it yourself. After Bear Bryant, all they did was lose.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman
The
Trophy
early
race
line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
NewsWire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterbacks,
Pharrell,
backup quarterbacks.
coast to coast.
I want to watch great players make buckets and win games.
Game time
I
decisions.
have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
In the bottom of the fourth inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports
That
Rage
was good
Late
betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid
We did.
consideration. Did like the 2.5. Jumped on.
There's no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Feels like Monday after the Super Bowl, the football season officially ends. Like today is it. Like this is, last day, kind of water cooler it, talk about everything that happened, and then we move on to the NCAA tournament here for betting, baseball, NBA, NHL. I think for most people, that's kind of the perspective on it. I wanted to give some perspective on the San Francisco 49ers, a really good team, and not just a great team over the last few years. This is sort of reminding me a little bit about those teams that I watched growing up, like the Buffalo Bills, who couldn't get a Super Bowl done, who couldn't win a Super Bowl. And, sometimes you run into these eras where you're playing against the best and you don't win. I mean, I remember the Chargers, so good for a long time, couldn't get over the hump playing against Steve Young in the Super Bowl. And all those teams that had to play against Dallas leading up to the Super Bowl as well, whether it was Buffalo or anybody else. And maybe it's just the unfortunate luck that the 49ers are in this era of Mahomes. Remember when Tom Brady was going strong, it was the era of Brady. Nobody could get by Brady. Eli Manning did for a couple of years. But I think when we remember the 49ers, unless they get over this hump and capture that Super Bowl, whether it's against Mahomes or anybody else, we will remember them as the team that just got there and couldn't win. And that's just the dynamic of sports. Sometimes you just have some bad luck. I don't indict the 49ers for anything, by the way, that happened to the season. And honestly, even in that game, just some mistakes. All right, that will do it for the show. Thanks once again to Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report, George Kurtz, as well as Vinnie Iyer. Those were our guests on the program. Of course, our producer, Sam, who's back from Vegas and firing away here on this Monday. We will, of course, be back here on the show tomorrow. We'll start talking some baseball, some more college basketball with you here on NewsWire. And spring training is right around the corner as well. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday. I'll be back with you tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire, 11 a.m. Eastern. And can't wait to be with you here the rest of this week and just getting ready for the upcoming baseball season. Love to talk about it. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.